Hey, what's going on, everybody? Happy after holidays time. Now that we have no more holidays until, February?
I think Valentine's Day.
Valentine's Day. All right, well, okay, that's a good holiday, too. Not as good as Christmas and everything else, but hey, you know. So, welcome back. Today's episode is going to be a little bit different. We're going to be answering questions that you guys sent to us. So, that's where we're starting. So, this is from one of our subscribers, Ash Pickles. She asked two questions. Her first one was, what do you do if you're married to a narcissist?
Well, I think that's a really good question. I would kind of take pause to wonder what is making you feel like you're married to a narcissist. I mean, my idea is usually a feeling that your partner can't really empathize with how you're feeling. You may feel like your needs or wants kind of are on the back burner. So I think you have to work really hard to help them to gain some curiosity to want to understand you and to learn how to be a little bit more empathetic to what you're wanting and needing.
Yeah, I've noticed when people have asked me that question, I've gone around that question, they've kind of talked about their partner as one that just doesn't care as much as they should. And they'll say like, oh, that's narcissistic because he cares about himself more than me. So it's like a balance of care that seems to be the issue that's put on as narcissism. So yeah, it's really trying to find a way to get them to listen to you. We can resort to really bad things to try to get them to listen to us, like ultimatums. Like, if you don't listen to me, I'm not gonna do this. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we'll say like, oh, we're not gonna have sex until you listen to me. Like, that's a common one, and that goes either way. It doesn't matter the gender in that one. So it's not just getting them to listen to you; it's getting them to listen to you in a way that's not gonna screw up your relationship.
Mm-hmm. Right, and I think that using "I feel" statements is just so key. Being able to say, "I feel hurt" or "I don't feel heard." Just being able to say that to help them try to understand where you're coming from is really helpful. And then when they say their own wants and needs, being able to say, look, I can hear what you're saying, and I do want to address how you feel. But right now I'd want to focus on, kind of what I'm saying first. This is, why I'm bringing it up to you.
Yeah, don't let them bulldoze you in a conversation or change the conversation to whatever topic they want, that kind of stuff. You got to get around all that manipulation that happens in that kind of scenario.
Well, and I think the other component of that is sometimes people don't realize that your partner and you can have completely different experiences. So he can have an experience when you ask for something and he might feel like it's a demand on him, even though that's not your intention. So really being able to understand, okay, I can see how you're feeling about this, but my intention is not to try to control you. I'm just trying to ask for what I'm wanting and needing. It's up to you if you want to agree or not to it, but this is what I'm needing right now. So being able to know that your partner can have a very contradicting experience to what you're feeling, and that both are valid, and being able to work through that together.
Yeah, I mean, it's really tough because a lot of times we get into relationships, and that beginning of a relationship is really fun. You get to know a lot about each other, and you're curious, and you have that energy, and then that kind of tapers off for whatever reasons. But you have to keep that going on if your relationship is long term. You have to become more curious and learn how to communicate and develop that curiosity kind of deal. So that's where a lot of problems come in, where there feels like there's imbalance in anything, in caring or who does what work. It really is a lack of communication, which comes from a lack of curiosity, because we think like, oh, I've been with this person for X amount of time, I honestly know everything about them. It's like, no, you don't. You really don't, and they don't know everything about you. So you really have to get ready to expose yourself to someone that you're with. But we don't expose ourselves to our lovers. I don't care, for 20 years you're with them, you haven't fully exposed yourself. But that's something that you should constantly be doing together. I feel safe in doing that. Yeah. All right. So Ash Pickle's second question was, what do I do if my partner really wants to put a gerbil up my butt, but I don't want to? So, away from the animal rights and stuff.
That's true. That is a form of animal cruelty.
That's animal cruelty. And away from the medical side of like, they could just wreck you from the inside, right? Away from all that, one of the things is that if you don't want to do something sexually, you don't have to.
Right.
I mean, that's too forcible, right? If you say no, it really just means no, and you can listen to them like, why do you want to do this? And then you can listen to them, and that's fine. They can say whatever. And this has to do with anything. They want to introduce toys, a new position, music. It doesn't matter. Whatever they're trying to introduce doesn't have to just be with a gerbil.
Right. I mean, I think if you're feeling like you're being coerced into doing something, it's probably not something that you want to do, or maybe you have to talk about it quite a bit further to really figure out if that's something you're interested in. But sometimes these things do come up where, you know, your partner may want to do something that you're not comfortable with, and it's perfectly acceptable to say no and see if there's a different way that you guys can incorporate that into your intimate time in the bedroom, whether it's a video or something else, or something that you are reading together. You know, is there another way to do this without you actually physically doing something you're not comfortable with? And
Yeah.
I think you have to talk all about that.
Yeah, you know, you can ask, like, is there something else, you know, that would be fine other than this, because I don't want to do this, you know. And even if you talk through it forever and you're like, no, I still don't want to, but, you know, mention something else, like you said, a video, you know, that's how you can go about that.
Right, you can watch video. There are toys that you could use
Yeah.
if you prefer that. But I mean, if there's no interest there at all, then that's perfectly acceptable to say no. Better not to do something that you're not comfortable doing than to do something and feel regretful or resentment or hurt in the process.
Yeah. And since this is Ash Pickle's second question, you know, I was wondering, what do you do if a narcissist is trying to make you do something sexually that you don't want to do? And it's really the same thing, but it might be a little bit harder if they're truly a narcissist. And this is where you might have to get some extra help outside to really find a way for you two to communicate and understand each other. Because if they're pushing for something that you don't want to do, they obviously don't know enough about you to understand where there's boundaries and why you wouldn't, and all that kind of things, all those things like that. Yeah.
Right, definitely being able to go to individual therapy. I mean, you know, I usually recommend, if you're feeling like you're married to a narcissist, for your partner, ideally, to go in first and have some individual therapy to gain some insight into his or herself, to be able to empathize, and then move on to couples. But it would really be up to you and whatever therapist you're speaking with.
Yep. All right. Next question, and these are from people who emailed us and things like that, not specifically from comments. Another question we got was, what are some signs that show you have healed after a breakup, that you're over a breakup?
I think one of the signs, you know, I think we tend to romanticize the past, as well as hold on to a lot of anger. And I think if you've started to let some of these feelings go and can really see the relationship for what it was, positive and negative, I think that's a huge sign that your emotional healing has started, or, you know, you may be ready to fully to move on. So I think if you can speak about it in a way that's more objective to some degree, I think that's a good sign that you're moving toward the right direction.
Yeah. I mean, the goal after a breakup is to feel that you genuinely can find someone else to love, you know? A lot of the stuff before that, and it matters why you guys broke up. You know, if it was a really bad breakup, you might be really preoccupied with them and have a lot of hateful feelings for them, right? So you're not over it in that sense. There was something bad happened and it's not resolved. We won't say over it, it's not resolved. So you know that you've healed from that breakup when you think about them, it's not hateful. It's not just like pure hate.
Right, and it's not that hopeless feeling like you said, I'm never going to meet someone again. Just piggybacking on that, I think sometimes we can have behaviors that in the moment are impulsive and feel good to us, but overall don't really do us any service. And I think, for instance, with all the Instagram and Facebook, you know, if you find yourself still checking that person's Facebook, Instagram, whatever the social media is, that's probably a sign you haven't fully moved on. So if you notice that you haven't been doing that anymore, that behavior is pretty indicative of you being able to move forward, and they're not on your mind, they're not taking up so much mental space anymore.
Yeah. Another thing too, which is a little bit minor, but it's like, you know, you've just gone through a breakup and you see other couples and they just piss you off just because they're happy. If that happened and then that starts to not happen as much, and other couples don't just piss you off for no reason, that's another sign that you're going through that healing process of breaking up. You know, because, you know, if we've lost something that we really wanted, we can hate when other people have it, and that's fine. We can be mad about that, you know, and it's a little bit envious and jealous, but that's fine to have those feelings. It really is. Just be aware of it and then, just be like, okay, look, I'm pissed at this couple for no reason other than like, I'm mad about what happened, and it's cool. But so when you see that tapering off, that's another way to show that, like, I'm healing from this breakup. And another way to show is that, you can have deeper feelings than just lust, for someone else. Sometimes if you break up, sometimes you're just trying to distract yourself and you're just doing whatever you can. But once you start feeling something a little bit deeper than lust for someone else, then you can see like, oh, that breakup that I had and that ex-boyfriend, ex-girlfriend, it doesn't matter anymore. It's not dominating my life anymore.
I think that's a really good point. I think if you end up feeling a little bit of a crush feelings for someone, and if you, in your mind, are building the idea of the possibility of you being together and just feeling curious, what would that be like to be with that person in a relationship with that person? Again, this is another sign that you are beginning to move on and imagine what your life could be like with someone else. There's that a little bit of that hope, a little bit of excitement, and your feelings are being able to be put onto someone else versus all put onto this relationship that's now ended.
Yeah, you get your life back, pretty much. All right, so our next question is, what are signs of a needy guy? Well, like one who stalks you on social media, one who stalks you physically, they don't stop texting you. Those are like kind of the first signs you'll get.
Oh yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I think most women have probably been on a date at some point where you just get kind of not so good of a feeling. Your red flags, as they say, go up with someone. And this may be someone who is pushing you to come over after the first date. This is someone who maybe is constantly contacting you. And you know what, I think for me the big thing that comes up is boundaries. And men not respecting boundaries. So if you say, no, I'm not okay with this, there's a difference between them just kind of saying, okay, sure, but continuing to try to coerce you, or really saying, okay, I understand, and stopping when you say to stop.
Yeah.
And that may be whether it's unsolicited sexual messages that you're not wanting, or trying to do things physically that you don't want to do. This could be someone who wants all of your undivided attention, which no person can give.
Yeah.
I think these are all signs, and if they're not respecting when you say no, that's a red flag.
Yeah, I think another red flag you can see maybe even on the first date or few is someone who wants to be exclusive immediately, and they're really about that exclusivity. You have to wonder, like, why do you want to be exclusive so fast? We don't know each other. We're just gone on a date or a couple of dates. That's another sign where you might say, like, oh, maybe he's needy. That's his attachment style, right? And someone who's always pleasing and accommodating. That's really manipulative to be always pleasing and accommodating. Like, he agrees with everything you say. Like, that's a little bit of bullshit. There's no way anyone agrees with everything with everything that you say. So they're trying to snake their way into your life and into your heart in that way.
I think the other component is if a man is idealizing you, and then they may agree with everything you're saying, maybe not on a conscious level, they realize they're being manipulative, but there's an idealization there, but the fall from that pedestal is pretty steep. So that's another thing to look out for. If someone's giving you too many compliments and you're thinking this is just not comfortable, there's aggression under there, and I think you're absolutely right about that.
Yeah, it's hostility. It's not even just aggression. It's really hostile. What would be something else?
Well, I think, like you said, wanting to be exclusive right away, you may be a woman who wants to date a few people and just kind of see who you click with, and you're not going to really necessarily know that from one date. So if this person is really badgering you to be exclusive with them, and you're upfront and saying, look, I'm dating other people at the same time right now, I'm just getting to know people, and they have a big issue with that, and they get jealous, there's that envy, that's a warning sign, versus, you just met. It's perfectly acceptable for you to say, I'm not ready to be exclusive yet. You don't know the person.
Yeah. And anything that they do that may isolate you from your friends and family. Like, if you want to go out, they're like, no, it's either me or them. Any of these kind of ultimatums, super red flag. This will be a little bit past, like, the first date. This is kind of more, maybe you're in a relationship with them and maybe you're even exclusive. But even then, that's a really bad sign if they're telling you me or them, because that's going to continue in that relationship.
Right. If they're making you feel bad for doing things that you want to do for you as an individual, that's a pretty strong sign. You shouldn't be feeling bad for wanting to go and meet your friends for lunch. So I think that's important to pay attention to as well. They also may do something where every time you want to go out, suddenly they're sick or the crisis comes up and they need something from you. And while the crisis may be real, it's also pretty convenient that it's happening on a day that you're supposed to go and do something for yourself.
Yeah. Manipulation, isolation, that's how you can see all these really red flags of someone who's too needy. And that goes really beyond too needy, but that's a good way to see it.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to hit up our last question. We were asked, does starting a relationship based on drugs ever work out? So, no, it won't work out. It'll work until the drugs run out, that kind of thing. We can see this in other ways too that aren't so extreme. Like, there's some people who get together just to have kids, right? So the relationship's fine. The foundation of the relationship is the children. Once the children leave, you will see that relationship fall apart because what brought them together isn't there anymore. So that'll happen the same thing with drugs. Once the drugs run out, there's no more money for the drugs or whatever situation happens, then the relationship will disappear. It's not a good way to start a relationship, and it's not gonna last. It may be fun for a while, but that's it. That's all you're gonna get from that.
Yeah, I think I won't. I never like to give ultimatums. I'll never say never, but certainly starting a relationship based on drugs, your connection is to whatever that high is. You're altering your mood and self. So once you're off those drugs, and then you're faced with who you actually are, it could definitely pose a threat to the relationship, or test it, because now you have to find a newer connection. So I think it would be really challenging to maintain a healthy relationship if that's where you've started, but I won't say it's not possible, because I'm sure people who have worked really hard and have found other ways to be connected that maybe it has worked out. But typically I think it's better to be sober and to really be with who you are as a person and get to know them who they are as a person, because people can be very different on enough drugs, especially depending on what type of drug it is. I mean, is this marijuana? Is this ecstasy? I mean, that's going to affect you much differently, or whatever the drug is. So that's also good to keep in mind. Yeah.
Being in a relationship with a drug addict is hard, but I think it was more going towards, we got into a relationship because of drugs, because we're getting drugs. I think that's way more destructive than just being in a relationship with someone who happens to be a drug addict or becomes a drug addict during the relationship. Those you can work on, right? Those you have a chance of working on because you had something before the drugs or something other than the drugs. If it is because of the drugs, I'm gonna say that 99.9% chance it's gonna fail.
Right, especially if you or the other person decides to get sober, and if you decide to get sober and the other person doesn't, that's going to impact your sobriety and impact your relationship. So, I mean, you'd really have to, if it was going to work, and even then it might not, you'd really have to be wanting to be sober at the same time and be on the same page and be really invested in getting to know each other in the relationship. But I think you're right, starting off with drugs is pretty destructive, and you already sort of have a few black balls against you, in that scenario.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, thank you for listening this week. If you want us to answer any of your questions, please leave us comments down below. We'll get to them next week, and we'll see you guys then.
Have a great day.
Catch you guys later.